Hey, welcome to day 2 here at EDUCAUSE 2024 here in San Antonio, Texas. We've got an exciting day lined up for us here. We are at booth 4067. The Rackspace public sector team is here connecting with folks and sharing ideas. I'm Jeff Martinez from Rackspace Technology, and we're coming straight from the expo floor. So if you hear the mariachi music in the back or you hear the buzz of partnership in the back, that's what's going on here in San Antonio. This morning I have the distinct pleasure of having two highly sought after experts in the industry. One, our good friend Murty Chappidi from AWS. He's the partner CTO, and he is the senior solutions lead in public sector, and a good friend of ours and partnered with us for some time. So welcome, Murty. Great to have you today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Welcome. This.
To my immediate right is my partner in crime, Jason Wicker. Jason is part of the Rackspace Government Solutions team as well, and he serves as the Chief Technology Officer and works with me on a day-to-day basis. Jason, good to see you. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, yesterday, a lot of great conversations. We had conversations with Texas A&M University Systems Executive Director. We had a great conversation with Dr. Mosen from Austin Community College. And today we've got a great lineup as well. But in some of those conversations, we started talking about some of their challenges and some of the ways they're approaching some of the things that they're really seeing some success on. And EDUCAUSE has done a really nice job of focusing the conference around what they're calling institutional resilience. And they're identifying that a little bit by 3 dimensions: mission, operational, and financial resiliency. And to really help describe those 3 dimensions, they've listed out a top 10, right, of just what's important to this market and to these folks here that are really leading the way: administrators, teachers, professors, students, all of the people that are involved in this great community, right? Yeah. And so we're going to dive in a little bit. EDUCAUSE talked a little bit about, through those 3 dimensions and through the top 10, technology, data, the workforce that's there in these institutions and departments that play a part and will help advance these 3 dimensions of mission, operational, and financial resiliency. So we're going to deep dive, and I thought we'd have a thought leadership conversation today with you two, which, extensive backgrounds and expertise. So excited to have you guys join me. And we won't go through all 10, but we're going to go through some of the ones that I think will resonate with the audience here today, okay?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
You guys good with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you talk about multi-dimensions, right, that's one of the things about university and edu systems is that it's unique in the fact that you've got different customer bases that all have different levels of requirements, different levels of needs, and these 3 missions of resiliency across the operations, the finance, and the mission statements that these agencies or these entities have is about delivering high value to each and every one of those very disparate set of requirements, but with a very integrated set of needs.
Yeah. No, I think you make a great point.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on those dimensions, operational?
Yeah, so it's great to classify as data, workforce, and technology.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of disruption happened with the educational sector during COVID, right? So it's suddenly we had to scramble, everything went virtual. So since COVID, we are seeing mixed trends. We still prefer the educational institutions prefer students to come back to campus, and some of them also having that virtual capacity for the disadvantaged backgrounds, making sure that they're making the education more democratized. So with these trends, it's really challenging times, and there's a lot of scope for innovation for this educational sector, in terms of technology. So that's where we can support the industry with the technology advancements and help them achieve that operational efficiency, innovation, and also cost savings.
Right. I think it's a really exciting time in this community, right? And it's exciting for partner vendors to team with these institutions and these leaders and these students and teachers and professors to figure out how we work together, right? And to enable them to move forward in this market, right? So it's pretty cool. Okay, so one of the things that, going down the list of top 10, right? Yeah. EDUCAUSE listed the number one, right? And their priority probably, but number one, and probably number one to a lot of folks, is balancing cost and risk and thinking about it through the lens of cybersecurity as a core competency, right? So when you think about that and you think about higher education, what comes to mind? Cybersecurity is a core competency, and then really benefiting and focusing on balancing cost and risk.
And as we always say in our world, right, security first, right? Security is at every table. Security is part of every conversation, right? It's like salt and pepper. You always have to have it there, right? There's always got to be something we talk about. The challenge, right, is a diverse workforce, a diverse geographical, right, support organization. As universities adopt more COVID remote policies and more remote benefits, as they deliver more services to the edge, right, it expands that edge of security, visibility, and requirements. And so, there's just so much to keep up with that's why we partner with folks like yourself, right, to kind of stay ahead so that we can come back and say, hey, from a solutions perspective, here's the security aspect for virtual desktop. Here's the security aspect for this. Oh, and by the way, all of this is wrapped up in PII security, right? And I mean, universities, not just the medical universities, they provide healthcare, right? HIPAA data is out there. So what we strive to do, and what I try to help, message is, you've got to raise the baseline, right? But you've got to do it in a way that is operationally efficient and cost efficient. And to be honest, some of the universities have moved so fast that they haven't had to step back. Right? And so, from AWS's perspective, what do you think kind of the lens that can be provided across that stack looks like?
It's absolutely. So security is ultra important for any industry, especially education sector, right? And as you know, security is job zero at Amazon. So that means it is our top priority. So we have been traditionally a lot of security offerings, including identity and access management, a lot of web application firewall. We have the AWS Shield, which gives that SWAT team to address any of those things. You see that malware injections, distributed denial of services, you see in the news that some of the universities were taken down their websites. So traditionally we have been supporting these organizations with our security tools and services, and now the complexity has increased with the generative AI. So the lines are a little bit blurred, right? So with generative AI, we need to be more about PII, data and privacy, is the responsible AI, and not having that bias, and also having that not hallucinating. Because traditionally with web applications, you would test, this is the API, this is the request, and this is the response. But with generative AI, you need to do the same thing. That means it is more challenging to come up with those test cases.
Well, and you have more people wanting to use this platform, right? So, if you look today on endpoint security or perimeter security, right? That's an IT thing at a university for the most part. But now we're beyond, the applications of Banner and Workday, right? Where it's just hey, that's what everybody uses. Now it's, my students want to use Gen AI. My professors want to use Gen AI. We have to have, we had the conversation with UTSA, right? And Dr. Hong, who will be on later today on this interview process as well. And they settled on 4 different sets of rules for generative AI that each of the professors could pick from. So if you think about that for years and years and years, they've had one set of guidance for classes. Right? For professors. Now, they struggled to come to 4. And then the professors picked that. So from our side, as partner vendors, we just have to make sure that as it's our day zero job, it's obviously the top of the priorities for the EDUCAUSE and the education sector. We just have to make sure that everybody understands we're going to come to the table with security and compliance every single time. It's not about adoption for adoption's sake. It's about doing the right thing with the right platform to secure your data and manage your costs, right?
Yeah.
And operationalize that. So yeah.
So in your experience working with customers and other partners, are you finding that folks really understand that, or is it something that it becomes an educational moment or a guiding through, a partnering of walking the path to better understand the cybersecurity entity as a core competency with all of the emerging technologies that they probably want to get into? Thoughts around that?
So I think that you said it right, which is that path, right? What my experience has been when you start talking about, I am RBAC security for AI, people are like, oh, yeah, of course. When you start talking about offline large learning language models, they go, oh yeah, of course. But if you were to ask them about it up front, it's, well, yeah, we should do security. But that's somebody's job.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the end user. It's not my job, right? And the reality of it is it's everybody's job. And the further these high-end data privacy potential challenges and, both for personal data as well as, PII, or not PII, but IP, right? Especially when we start talking about research and all the other, half of that university side of the world, it has to be critical, and it's not somebody else's job. It's everybody's job.
Yeah.
And so as we walk with AWS, right, it's one of the things I love about working with Murty is that sometimes I'm talking to procurement, sometimes I'm talking to operations, sometimes I'm talking to architecture, sometimes we're talking to the end user, the professor, and we can always turn to AWS and say, hey, I need a little expertise, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you're able to bring that to the table.
Yeah, so that's where, exactly, Jeff, to your point, so there are a mix of things, right? Different organizations are in different stages of their security journey. And at AWS, we like a pitch about a shared security model. So that's where customer and the cloud provider are responsibility matrix. That's where cloud provider offers security for, off the cloud, but security in the cloud is still the biggest responsibility to make sure so your applications are properly secured, your generative AI, the LLMs, the data you work is secure. So it's a lot of education happens in that because the technology is having a seismic shift with data analytics and now AI, and at the same time the security also has to transform and a lot of education happens, and we need to be up for the challenge, right?
Yes.
So we need to keep up with the technology. At the same time, we don't want to create that firewall everything and not able to give access to anyone. Yeah, it's easy to do that, just lock everything. But at the same time, you want to have those, democratize these technologies with the wider, in case of education institutes, the students, the parents, and the edtech companies and the educational institutions. Yeah. We all want to work in that symbiotic system, and security is the biggest part of it, and we need to continuously adapt to the technology.
No, that's great. So what I heard from both of you is security is paramount. It's day one or day one minus
day zero.
1 or 2, right? So that's great. That gives us an opportunity to segue into EDUCAUSE's number 2 on the list and have a conversation around, not just cybersecurity or solutions or software. All these things are all decisions that these leaders and these administrators and folks are making, right? And so number 2 on the EDUCAUSE top 10 is driving to better decisions. And so if we can, the underlining comment or thought behind that is improving data quality and our favorite, governance.
Yeah.
Right? So number 2, let's talk a little bit about before those decisions are made or empowering these customers that we're working with as partners, right? How do we help them drive to better decisions? And what are your thoughts about the importance of data quality and governance? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So it's all about breaking the silos when it comes to data. So traditionally, we have seen that it's all about compute, storage, database, and we have moved to the applications. We're supporting all the community. So now we are in the era of taking it to the next level, where the creating the data lakes, where it will help the organizations to make those informed decisions. So that's the power of data. That's traditionally there's been a lot of silos, you have these data warehousing systems, a lot of development teams creating those reports and all ad hoc reports, a lot of cost and effort involved. So with the new technology, what AWS offers is all the data lakes and breaking the silos. You all have the data sources, and you have something like a cost-effective S3 storage, keeping it as a data lake, and then from there, using AWS Glue and also having those, we call generative BI like QuickSight, and we also have Redshift. So for warehousing, data warehousing, so you can use these technologies to get better insights. That means you are driving your decisions based on those data.
Well, yeah, I mean, data-driven decisions, right? I mean, that's really what the future is about. And it's back in the days, it was pen and paper. Then it became spreadsheets, and then it became access databases, and then it became relational databases, and then it became NoSQL databases. And now, when we look at the plethora of data, and universities are probably one of the largest generators of cross-functional data out there, right?
Yeah.
Because everything from student metrics to grades to parking permits to research data and everything that's out there, and they gather so much of it. And some of the challenges that we have heard is we have it all, we just don't know what it's telling us.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is a bottom-up and a top-down problem that can be solved, right? And so from a bottom-up perspective, it's the low-hanging fruit, the use cases where it's well-defined, and I can go say, hey, take all my alumni data and tell me more about my alumni, right? And what motivates them, what moves them. Or, hey, here are the last 75 syllabuses that you did on this particular class. Here are some suggestions as how to maximize that. All the way up to some of the stuff we were just talking about, which is you've written 1,000 grants and grant proposals.
Yeah.
Why don't we take those and consolidate them, right?
Yeah.
And start maybe scoring ourselves and assessing that we're doing the right thing. Because when I talk to other vendors around here and they start talking about data services of any kind, right? My first question is do I have to give you my data?
Yeah.
Because then my second question is, are you responsible with my data?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because I have to meet XYZ, LBC, ABC requirements, right? I need you to show that to me. And that's one of the things that I like about a unified data warehousing as well as metadata management tooling, right? Is being able to go in and say, we have a platform, right? That provides a solution that allows you to come and access this data in about 12 different ways, 200 different ways, right, for your use case. I was talking to a CDO yesterday, actually, at another conference, and one of the things that he said is, oh yeah, we've got warehouses. We have 7. Okay, you have 7 data warehouses. 7 data warehouses. So I was like, but isn't the point to have 1? Right? That's kind of the...
Yeah.
And so I said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, we replicate this data and we make a minor change for a use case.
Yeah.
And I said, so you replicate the whole stack? He goes, well, yeah. I said, but is the use case using that whole stack of data? Well, maybe, right? And, in my head, I don't see alarm bells are going off, but, there's a little steam whistle going back there going, well, you're paying for 7 replicas of the same data that I could on the fly ETL for you or modify, right, based off requests. So as the world travels, as we move forward, right, especially with AI, especially with where we're going with AIT, data's the gravity, data's where we're going to be going from. And I think all decisions, for the most part, need to be data-centric because it's available.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer the question, find the partner that can help you find your data, classify it, and then answer the question.
Yeah. So data analytics is very important. Also, we can see different maturity levels of the organizations. Yes, you have been managing the applications well. Now you have the data lake. You are able to make those decisions. Now the next stage is, are you able to model or predict based on your data? So that's where the incredible innovation is happening using the generative AI. So generative AI has taken the world by storm, and more than 80% of the organizations would have used these generative AI applications or a POC or a production by 2026. This is as per Gartner, 80%, staggering numbers, right?
Yes.
So this is where Amazon understands the need from the customers, and also based on our AI/ML expertise. So we have services like Amazon Q QuickSight, so where you can use these insights that we call generative BI, generative business intelligence. So using that, you can create impromptu reports based on your natural language commands. So you can say, okay, give me the sales trends for last 3 months. So you don't need to be a BI expert like Jeff. He owns that SLG and education business. So he can run these queries. So give me what is the pipeline for last 3 months looks like.
Yes.
And you can also articulate, okay, I would like to create a summary, AI summary for my leadership. Can you create an AI summary based on the data visualizations you have? So in that way, so that the data is at your fingertips. You don't need another team of people developing reports for you. Right. So that's the incredible innovation is happening.
And with proper data integration and security, right, then Jeff's view of that world is different than my view of that world, is different than Ralph's view of that world based off of who we are, right? The data identity of the individual, student, professor, partner, researcher, right? That is what's going to drive the security model. That's what's going to drive the data models, and the more accurate we're going to get with who I am and what my data is about, the better I'm going to be able to control my costs, the better I'm going to be able to operationalize this, and be able to bring in partners like yourself. Because AWS has got funding programs where we can just come in and do, X dollars for a proof of concept. They'll provide the content, we'll provide the resources, and we'll work to prove out the top 3 use cases, right, for an entity, and maybe one is faculty, one is research, and one is student. Right.
No, I think you guys are making some great points, and I love the information and the content shared. So thank you. You guys also are hitting on EDUCAUSE's number 4, right, which is diving deep into the data analytics, right, and leveraging those analytics for actionable insights to improve learning and student success, right? And so we talked about how as a business owner or administrator might utilize those analytics, and you guys started to get into that. So their number 4 is really diving deep into that data, but more focused on the student, the analytics, how improving the learning experience, and really the student, allowing the student to be successful. So any experience or conversations that you guys have had in that?
Well, so that ties back, I think it's maybe number 7 or number 8, right, which is meeting the students where they are, right? And so to Murty's point early on, right, COVID changed the landscape of everybody, but in the university world, it very much did. And one of the nice things about it is it took what was at one point a subset of universities that provided solid end-to-end user customer experience, i.e. student experience, right, for remote learning. Now everybody does it, right? And it's not remote learning, it's remote culture, right? And so when you start talking about remote culture, remote services, remote healthcare, remote all of these pieces, I have to be able to provide, as an entity in the university, I've got to be able to provide that same level of service that I have on campus for my folks in Alaska or wherever they may be, right? And that has to do with data, because I can go out there and I can put all these programs together and I can make all these recommendations. But if I don't know the feedback loop, if I don't know what's working and what's not working, if I don't know from metrics and from actual data, right, to know that, hey, on average, our on-campus students spend 17 minutes on a healthcare appointment with the university. On average, our remote students spend 39 minutes on a tele, right? Why? Well, because there's a 15-minute delay in getting that telehealth thing going. Oh, there's a problem I can go solve. Right? How do you get to that? You get to that by having data, providing analytics, and then the visualization,
insights.
right?
And deeper insights. Jeff, to your point, so we have this data on a single pane of glass. Okay, we have the data lake, and we're able to create visualizations. Great, but next, as you said, how are we using this to take it to the next level? Like having a deeper insights. For example, student enrollments, and UCSD is using Amazon Forecast for how the student enrollments to optimize, and also resource utilization, and see the other trends, and they're getting that the optimization using Amazon Forecast. So this was like initially developed using machine learning by Amazon. As you know, we have been working in the ML space for the last 20 years. It could be like e-commerce recommendation engine, as you see on the Amazon website, is powered by ML. And the robotic picking, the routes picking optimization in the fulfillment centers is like driven by ML.
Right.
and our the warehousing, forecasting, and the supply chain, everything is like powered by ML. And so with the generative AI, we have taken it to the next level, and using those, understanding those deeper insights, and also for creating that, like empowering the organizations
Right.
with that technology is giving
and
that.
it's adapting the technologies that Amazon and others have created over the years
Yeah.
to the use case. And by having the data, it allows us to focus on the use case.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon Forecast wasn't originally created for student enrollment,
Exactly.
right? But when it was given student enrollment data, it was able to do its job, right? Which is to forecast the predictions. Where are we going to be, right? Do we have enough parking spaces, right? What is that theoretical limit of students that we have? If we opened up the doors to everybody and said, everybody come, right? There's got to be a cap. How do I figure out what that is? I figure it out through
Yeah.
data, right? And then, all of this, when properly done, ties back to dollars spent to value created, right? Because there's a lot of folks that, probably watching this that are in these offices that's priority number 2 behind cybersecurity, right? Which is every dollar that's invested has got to get a bang for its buck. And so when we talk about a unified data platform, when we talk about dynamic unified visibility of data, dynamic RPA, right? Robotic process automation, right? If I can speed up enrollment for classes, right? I mean, when I went to university, we used to wait in lines, right, in front of the professor to get the class and hope we made it in time. Right? Now, it's like Ticketmaster, right? You got to be on there fast enough. And so if that data is properly used, then the university has better insight into what's the classes that people are looking for, right? As opposed to just the proctors watching around and going, oh, that's a really long line. We should probably do 2 of those next year, right?
Yeah. Going back to our conversations, or my conversations yesterday with 2 administrators, 2 executives in the space, they both were sharing their thoughts, their challenges, and their success with the post-pandemic enrollment crisis, right? Some people call it a crisis, some people call it an opportunity. But they're being creative in how their outreach programs are working, how they're collecting data to better pinpoint and target opportunities to make sure the underrepresented, or somebody that's on a remote location has an opportunity, and more importantly, the access to education. Right, and so it is a big hot topic right now.
Well, and that decision of remote enrollment, the goal of the universities in the education system should be, it's not a weighted decision whether I'm on campus or off campus, right? I should have access to everything both ways and equitably, right?
Yeah.
So, and obviously as broadband becomes bigger and a driving factor across the U.S. and both in Texas and in other areas, federal is putting money into that. That enables further remote access to more students, to more democratization of education, right? But when you go do these programs, and a lot of times universities will implement a new solution because they feel strongly it's a great idea. They feel that this will do well. Right? But 12 months from now, 18 months from now, I can't have feelings. I gotta have data. Right? And so as we increase the ability to collect data, as universities get more diverse on how they're collecting, how they're outreaching, right? Whether it's TikTok or Facebook or, web ads or, flyers, whatever it may be, all of that still has to go back to the same value proposition for that university, right? And it cannot be, well, I don't live in San Antonio, I probably shouldn't go to UTSA, I should go to somewhere closer, right? If that's the school and that's the program, then the university, and they're doing great jobs of it and continuing to, and we're here to help them, should extend that experience all the way across the globe.
No, it's a great point. It's end of the day, it's about student outcomes.
Yes.
Are we, it's a success criteria. Are we able to improve the student outcomes? When I was studying back in India, I had no access to Harvard or MIT or Princeton. So those days you need to come here. But during the COVID, I could do the digital transformation program by MIT.
Right.
So it was like, dream coming true. Oh my God. So, I had access to that content. I could do that within like 3 months. So that is the power, like, everyone can access. So yes, the student outcomes are important, when it comes to this.
So let me zoom out. I love that, because the access, global access.
Global access,
That's what we're talking about, right? Not just on campus, not just down the street, remote.
Yeah,
right? But
anyone
global
from
access.
anywhere, any corner in the world should be
Yeah.
able to access.
So thinking about the availability,
Yeah.
thinking about the access, global access, right? Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's talk to me a little bit about and share your thoughts on sitting down with an executive director, sitting down with the CIO level.
Yeah.
And where do you start that governance conversation? What are the first things that are important in that conversation that you want to make sure either A, the box is checked, or B, let's start there?
Yeah.
Murty, let's start with you. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so definitely I would start with the digitizing the content creation, right? There's a lot of times it is all about curriculum. So once you have applied the technology like generative AI and digitize your, the learning content, that means you are creating more access globally. So that means if somebody would like to enroll into that course, that same content is available, whether the student is in San Antonio, New York, or somewhere back in India, Africa, doesn't matter. So in that way, the digitizing content is very important. Also, creating that better learning environment. For example, if there is a student somewhere in India needs some support, so he needs to have like a 24/7 support, like a virtual assistant.
Yes.
To help him with completing the course. So recently we have implemented with the Coursera. It's got online courses. So the generative AI assistant called Coach. So that means it's always available at the corner of your screen, and when the student is stuck, or if he wants to, you can ask any questions, and it can provide those the guidance, what kind of courses he can do, where are the challenges he's experiencing, anything like he can do, like weaknesses in a particular subject. Yeah. So this is where when it comes to global access,
Right.
this kind of technology, having those generative AI assistants and also digitizing the content, that is what comes to my mind.
No, I love that. And so in providing that service, right, that global service, what do you think that CIO needs to be aware, concerned, or planning for in regards to governing that program, that global access? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think is important there?
So Jeff, I think in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned technology, workforce, and the mission.
Yeah.
So yeah, CIO has got his mission statement. So now he has to work on the technology and workforce. So he has to make sure the organizational workforce is motivated for that mission. You're getting up every day thinking about that mission. So then only you can make things happen. So that's very important, having that higher EQ in the people, and obviously the technology would drive. So adopting the technology. So looking at the technology, because there's a lot of different options available. So as a CIO, he needs to make those informed decisions. What is going to work for them? So pretty much in AWS, Amazon terms, we call working backwards. So list out all his requirements and see how he can map the technology, because he might be having traditionally a lot of legacy applications. It's not only adopting new technology, also dealing with existing technology. There could be like 300 applications doing everything, like you said,
Well, and
like 7 hardware.
that's one of the challenges for any CIO, honestly, in any education or out anywhere in the world, right? Which is, and Jeff, this should be close to near to your heart for some conversations we've been going on. I've got operations I have to run every day, right? But I've got to evolve my offering and bring operations along. And oh, by the way, that security day zero that we talked about's got to be there. So what the questions I like to ask CIOs, honestly, sometimes are some of the hard ones, right? Which is, are you kind of putting yourself in a position where you have a universal governance structure, right? Where you can operationalize that governance structure, right, across your vendor platforms, across your student, because you know, there's so many different vectors when it comes to a university, right? So a student engagement platform has a whole different world set than a a curriculum program, which has a whole different world set than a SharePoint site of content that has a whole different world set of exterior links that professors, right? So I'm actually remote with MIT right now myself as well. And one of the things that I find kind of funny sometimes is we'll get a link, it's behind a paywall, right? And those things are things that you've got to think about when you go to enable everybody out there, right? Sometimes it's free, it's just register, whatever, but it's that end-to-end experience CIO. Can you think about being a student and what your life is like and where security matters to your parents, to you, to your own personal information, right? As you grow and take this out into the field, how do you as a student get better at doing the stuff in the world, certifications, training programs, right? And really positioning as a thought leader in your own university as a CIO, right? How are you helping these students understand how IT and how data and security impacts, right? And then how do you deliver that?
Absolutely.
Right? Like I said, I like to ask the hard questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I see a tremendous opportunity for partners like Rackspace and AWS. So that the CIOs need help, because that's where, it's not like traditionally they're not into product building or solution building. That's where we can support them. Right. So in my role, I serve as a trusted advisor for partners and customers. So we need to, leverage this technology and infrastructure and solutions.
And a lot of times they don't even have, they haven't even thought about it yet, right? So it goes both directions. That's why I love having these relationships, right? Is so, you, myself, and some others partner together to build a proof of concept for generative artificial intelligence for RFX submissions, so RFPs, RFIs, RFOs, and it's both front side and back side. So it's evaluation, it's criteria summarization, it's different things. How did the responses go on? I met a gentleman here, first guy I talked to, right? We talk about this, and we have talked about this in our procurement. People think it's a cool idea. We've talked to folks. When I talked to Tim's already bought it.
Yeah.
He's like, you have no idea. This is how I operationalize my life from going. I was like, Tim, I'm just asking you to come see the presentation at 12:45 at the AWS booth. He's like, no. I've already. He's like, can you help me build a business case? He's like, if what you're telling me it does shows me that. And so when we're able to take a problem that we experience from our angle, but I'm not a procurement guy, right? I don't work in sourcing. I don't work in grant writing, right? But I've heard these kind of things are out there. And then we're able to go and do this proof of concept with AWS, where they're helping us from a technology and a process perspective. And we're able to, like I said, 30-second conversation with this guy.
Yeah.
And he is like, that's exactly what I need.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and the reason why I love our partnership with AWS is because we have the similar and same approach, which is listening to the customer, better understanding their critical missions, better understanding where they're trying to take their organization, their business outcomes that they're striving for, and working together to collaborate, to co-create a solution that best fits that particular leader, that particular organization, so on and so forth. And so when we create a solution together with AWS, right, like the one you're speaking of, it's because we listened to the customer. It's because we've heard over and over there's an opportunity to help enable.
Challenges,
right?
pain points.
And that's the difference, between creating products and developing solutions, right? And so you talked about trusted partnership. We talk about trusted partnership all the time. What are some of the criteria? I talked about some of them: listening to the customer, better understanding critical missions. From your perspective, how important is that when you guys are creating leadership and partnership relationships, that you want to really make sure genuinely you're showing and you're investing in those partnerships?
Yeah, so definitely it's all about being passionate, right, about your customers' needs. So, if I tie it back to Jeff Bezos' statement once, sometimes customers are, like often like wonderful and beautiful. They don't know what they want.
Sure.
So sometimes it is our job to innovate on their behalf. So for example, if you have, before the cars were invented, if you have asked people what do they want, they would have said that they wanted a faster horses.
Right.
They didn't know they can have cars, but we have innovated. The industry, as the automobile industry, has developed. So similarly, so now when you ask the procurement people, so they would be looking at I need a bigger team to manage this RFP process. But we are innovating the RFX generative AI solution, built by Rackspace, can take that heavy lifting out of these procurement people and help them create those things easily. That means they can focus more on technology. Because at the end of the day, again, we are tying back to student outcomes, right? We shouldn't be bogging down with creating the RFPs or technology or
Exactly.
managing the tech debt. So if we are not doing anything, not improving the student outcomes, we cannot justify any of this time spent. So in that way, that we always have to focus on. So to your point, Jeff. So that's where the understanding the need, working hand in hand, creating the trust with the customers. Especially Rackspace has been long-standing. We have our joint customers. So you have the trust, and we can build those POCs and enable them and create them.
And there's not only that. One of the things I love about working with AWS is that a lot of times we're, obviously at our level, we're working and doing these things together, kind of trying to, as I like to say, throw the dart, right? And be like, hey, I think this is the right thing. We've got some guidance, get feedback, do those loops with the customers, right? I always like to say, I like to be the partner that I want. Right?
Yeah.
Which is, I know that we can have an open and trusted dialogue. If I talk to somebody and I have they bring up a new problem, right? And we spend 30, 45 minutes, a couple of days noodling on that problem, right? And then I could come back and say, hey, this is kind of what we talked about on your behalf as partners. And here's some things that we think, maybe you haven't thought about, right? Here's some ways we can help solve that problem. But with AWS, it takes it one step further, and I'm going to use a Jeff Martinez quote, which is, it's a super high say-do ratio, right? Which is that when I bring Amazon into the conversation, or Amazon brings me into the conversation, I know without a doubt that if we say we are going to do something, we are going to over-deliver on that something, right? And it's value through investment and innovation, but it goes both ways, right? I, as a product owner, a lot of times, and I used to say this to engineers many years ago, which is, guys, the people that you're supporting know more about this than you do, right? They know more about their world, right? Exclaim less, listen more, right? And that's how you build the relationship. That's how we were able to get some of these folks here to do these interviews, right? Is that they know that they have a challenge, pick up the phone and call us, right? And by the way, it may not generate sales or revenue for us, but it helps build kind of an overall better world for education that, we have some opportunity to influence, AWS has some opportunity to influence us, the universities, educations have the opportunity to influence everybody, and it just creates this, collaborative pool, which, that's how innovation comes up. That's how it gets created, right?
Yeah, we all know that public sector in general, specifically higher education, has a different pace of innovation, has a different pace of funding, has a different pace of the things that they're doing because of the challenges that they have, right? And so partners understanding that pace, willing to listen to those requirements, better understanding their critical mission, understanding who their customers are. It's not just the students, it's not just the faculty, so on and so forth, right? Provides good information so that we as partner vendors can actually develop solutions together. So when we go back to the customer and says, we've thought this through for a week or 3 days or whatever that is, let's work together. We've started this draft idea of a solution. Let's work together with your folks, your professionals, your experts to figure out what's best for you, right? And so in doing that, one of the last things we'll talk about today is really number 7 for the EDUCAUSE top 10 is hiring resilience. right? And so these leaders, these teams, these higher education administrators, recruiting and retaining IT talent under adverse circumstances is a challenge no matter where you sit. If it's in the commercial side, or if it's in, the departments of transportation or education, or even in higher education institutions, everybody is challenged with that. And so I know AWS has teamed with many, many customers and, immersion days and certification training and providing, access to these things, right? And Rackspace the same. We've partnered with AWS in a lot of those things. How important is it to help our partners and our customers with retention?
Oh, I mean, I think that it's a catch-22, right? People are always concerned, hey, if I overtrain, if I over-enable, they're going to go find somewhere better, right? And I think, sure, maybe, but I think by offering these things that are out there, but it also ties back to what we've been talking about, which is extending the university experience. It's not just to the customer, it's not just to the students,
right?
It's to the employees, right?
100%.
And so what people start jobs because they think they're good at it. They stay at jobs because of culture, right? And culture is about not just who we are and what we do, but it's about how we support you, right? It's how, if you're here and you've worked with us, we've partnered up, you can go get certification days, right? That would normally cost, right? That are available free because we're able to help and support that and underwrite those kind of efforts. Being able to continually help that education cycle, right? Because it's also about challenging those employees, right? Hey, I'm not going to bring a vendor in to come over and do your job. I'm going to bring a vendor in to come help you do your job better.
Yes.
Right? And we're going to do that by enabling you both at a technical and a paper process and an education, continuing education, but we're also going to do it by listening, right? And taking that feedback, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing student feedback and faculty feedback, I should be doing IT feedback as well, right? I talk to my guys and I ask them, I say, hey, what do you guys want to be trained on in the next 6 to 9 months, right? Oh, well, we want this from AWS. Well, let me go talk to Murty. Let me get the right people in there, right? We have the same ability to do that to help these universities and education institutions collect, empower, and retain talent.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, that also can be the closed loop of student, intern, employee, right?
Right.
And where it's not where we need a project, it's short specific, it's super highly critical, it's super highly specialized, that's what partners are for, right? That's where we come in and, don't ask everybody to climb to the top of Mount Everest every day, right? You want to make it easy climbs. But when you need the Sherpa, when you need the help, right, that's where we can partner in, we can help with certifications, and Amazon's got an amazing education program globally across the board, both for everybody, really. It's a great program.
So it's a skill builder. Yeah, I think your point, Jeff, it boils down to people and culture. I think this is exactly, Jason, spot on. So it is like a partnership between partners, cloud providers, and the education institutions. So it's not like a handoff that, Rackspace is building a solution and giving it to a higher ed, like a university, and they have to use it, and they're using AWS for that. So it's not like, it's a partnership. So the employee, the IT team has to feel that they're part of that thing, right, when they're building it. So, in that process, so the Rackspace has been long-standing AWS partner with 2,200 certifications and 18 core competencies. That's where you can train some of the workforce there and get them up to the speed so that we can collectively build that, the IT, the people and culture. And that's one of the key area when it comes to retaining talent. So as an individual, I look around and I see, am I working in the latest and greatest technologies? Am I happy? I'm not slogging like 50, 60 hours. What about the productivity? If the IT team, you mentioned IT team. So if we can use some of these generative AI, Amazon Q developer, if they are like a development team, so it can increase their productivity by 30% because it can bring blocks of code trained by open source repositories and years of experience at Amazon. You just put the comment, I would like to, so no formal thing. So, create a string concatenate mechanism or create like, JSON to string conversion. So it can create a block of code just like that. And you can also train your own repositories and you can do the customization. So that can free up developers' time on day-to-day tasks, and then they can focus on developing the business features.
So from a university, back to the CIO hard questions, right, to kind of bring this back, the university enabling the right technology to allow for the reduction in the dull and the repetitive, right, also requires the governance and the process, right, back to the UTSA 4 different option example, right?
Right.
I have to be able to say in my mission statement that AI is okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I'm looking at retaining my talent, job satisfaction, survey-wise, generally number one, right? Yeah. And so if the employees, if the IT talent, if the operational talent realizes that, hey, the university, the entities that are my leadership are working with our partners not to just make me do more stuff.
Yeah.
Implement another product another day. It's implement solutions that actually optimize my life as a doer of things, right? And whether that's writing proposals or whether it's securing firewalls or
coding,
rewriting code, right? Because in the universities you've got the extremes. Because on the research side, right, they're bleeding edge, right?
Yeah.
They're creating edges we didn't even know existed yet,
Right?
Right? But at the same time, I have traditional support that I have to do. And so allowing your employees to have access to the right partners with the right training, with the right operational capabilities, and the open-minded aspect of, you know what, technology as it pervades more and more across everything, it's not just about bits and bytes and tables and data, right? It's about experiences. It's about efficiencies. It's about, I was happy today when I finished that project. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? That's the one, right? Man, I did that thing and that was so cool. And that excitement, right? That passion.
Yeah.
We have it, I think, organizational change management tied with generative AI, tied with automation, tied with technology can drive passion and culture down your employee stack.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the great things I love about Rackspace. I mean, every time I talk to somebody, oh yeah, I'd love to work at Rackspace. Everybody's happy because everybody knows our culture.
Yeah.
Right? And so the best we can do is share how that's done.
Yeah. So you mentioned an important point about the research. So a lot of those universities big on research. So students, faculty, so they have the big research departments. Most of the times with research, you need huge compute and storage things. So, the university funding doesn't allow to have that unlimited storage and unlimited compute. So that's where AWS can come into the picture, and it's the high performance computing. And we also big with the innovation on the chips, like, Trainium, Inferentia. We have been doing the chip innovation for a long time and suited for the research. And there's also option to have the bursting, because a lot of universities still want to maintain that minimum footprint of their research on premises.
Right.
So we still can respect that and have the hybrid approach. Okay, this is a big research project, we have grants have come, and you don't want to scale your infrastructure to ad hoc, and you can burst using the batching mechanism, those Scrum and all those the pipeline facilities. They can burst into AWS and use that for research and come back to on-prem when there is not much demand. They can continue using that. So in that way, it gives that empowerment.
Bringing these solutions, right? That's kind of the partnership, which is, hey, by the way, I didn't know if you could do this, but we can.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, we've done it at 57 other places.
Exactly.
Right. So, it's not a burden on IT to innovate, right? It's a partnership that allows for rapid technology adoption without all the overhead if you do it right. And so that's, to me, where the partnership comes in is, I like to say we have 170,000 customers, right? That's 170,000 experiences that we've had, right? And I may not have had all of them, but I can bring to the table partners.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon, way outstrips us on those numbers, right? But at the same time, we can collectively say, we've solved this. Here's 40% of the prep work to solve this for you. Let's work together for the next 30%. to make it yours, right? And then let's go tell everybody about it. Let's show how easy it is to use, right? So
Yeah,
exciting
so it's a
stuff.
huge talent pool available, and AWS, universities, and Rackspace, they have partnerships, so they can use the talent pool to solve some of the industry issues.
Yes.
So in that way, when I was studying, I didn't have access to any commercial software, right? Even for DOS, I had to install from 10 floppies. Then the CDs came. So now, when I look at the students, they can use latest and greatest Amazon Bedrock in their university because AWS got partnerships, and they can give the credits. So that's amazing. So that's incredible innovation. The innovation can come from any corner of the ecosystem. So yeah, students, research institutes. So this is where we can use the talent pool. Also make them feel that what they're working for, what they're passionate about, which keeps that your point where retaining talent. So that's a great opportunity.
It goes back to data driven. Because at the end of the day, did we succeed?
Exactly.
I get to see a nice screenshot, a nice view of the fact that all the work I did generated success.
Right.
And that creates job satisfaction.
IT, retaining IT talent is a challenge for everyone, right? Everyone. And people will move and shift, and arm themselves and certify and whatnot. But, what I heard from this conversation was, compensation is just more than the base salary.
Sure.
Right. Compensation includes culture, includes inclusion, right? Part of that culture of inclusion and making sure that you're getting the feedback and you're gathering the data and you're making good decisions. A lot of the top 10, a lot of the items on EDUCAUSE's top 10 that we talked about today, right? And so, listen, I really appreciate your guys' time today. I appreciate you guys coming. Murty, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Jason and I, we always love working with you and AWS. We enjoy it. It's a true partnership, and we look forward to many, many more opportunities to work together. Today, we're at day 2 of EDUCAUSE 2024. Murty and Jason Wicker joining me this afternoon or this morning to just really talk about some of the things that they've experienced, some of the things that resonate for this particular community, higher education and education institutions, and we look forward to the rest of the day. EDUCAUSE has a great agenda, and so we'll see you guys on the expo floor. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.